If there's a growing trend that we all know about in the automotive industry, is that every vehicle in every single category continues to grow in size. And we justify purchasing these massive vehicles because we have active lifestyles, growing families or whatnot. And that got me to thinking, what if cars were invented something like 200 years ago instead of 125? Think back to your grandparents or your great-grandparents and how many kids they had. Like, I know my great-grandmother had 13 children. Can you imagine the size of the vehicles they would need at the time? We'd all be driving around in Transits and Sprinters. But anyway, vehicles, yes, they are growing. And to a point where actual two-row mid-size SUVs have become boring. I mean, I'm just going to throw this out here because one of the members in this comparison test belongs to that company. The Murano currently, fully revamped, is just not finding any buyers in the US, and it's not moving anywhere near as much as it should, whereas the Pathfinder is doing fairly well. Just, right, everything has to be bigger. So, well, that got us to thinking, because we here at Motor Illustrated actually have families, can you believe it? And it's between 2 and 4 children. So what we tried to do, or not tried because we got them together, because we're that good, we're that big, is bring these two vehicles for this comparison test. So to your right, my left, is a 2025 Chevrolet Suburban, one of the longest running nameplates in automotive history. We're about 90-something years so far. And a Nissan Armada, fully revamped, ground up, all new. Both are 3-row, both are considered full size, but one has a slight overall girth advantage. Keep this PG. So what we want to see, and but before I go on, is that price-wise, these two are almost identical, which is, wait till you find out how much they retail for. Anyhow, so in the following comparison, what we're going to do is our typical and usual laps around these vehicles. I warn you now, it's going to take a while because this thing is almost 6 meters long and this one is well over 5 meters long. So it's going to take a while. And then after that, we're going to go for a drive because one has a very conventional powertrain, which is, fine. And this one has a more modern, more appropriate powertrain. So, well, if you're still hanging in there at this point in the video, please, please stick with us as we explore these two full-size 3-row SUVs. Okay, so we're going to start the walk-around portion of this comparison video with the tiny member of this comparison test, which is the 2025 Nissan Armada. So pricing starts in Canada. Are you ready for this? For an Armada at $84,998. That's for the base SL. You do get 20-inch wheels. You get the same 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6. You get 2 times 12.3-inch screens for the instrument cluster, as well as the touchscreen display. It's an 8-passenger setup. And you also get a Klipsch audio. This model before you right now is the Platinum Reserve, but not just any Platinum Reserve. It's got the captain seats in the second row. So once you step up to that, you get an adaptive air suspension, which is marvelous. It's got massaging seats, twin 14.3-inch displays. It can tow up to 8,500 pounds, and because it has the captain seats, you're looking at a full grand total of $105,998. By the way, full size, the measure overall length is 5.325 meters. For my American friends, that's long. The Tahoe, by the way, is 5.367 meters. So we're looking at about a 4-centimeter difference overall. So that's why it fits in this comparison test. So let's go to the trunk right now and let's compare the overall size. Now this, you will agree with me, is where everything happens. So behind the third row, power tailgate obviously standard at this point, you have 578 liters of boot space, which is a generous amount, but clearly not enough. There isn't much to say as far as storage under there is concerned. When the third row is down, you're looking at almost 3 times more trunk space, 1,470 some odd liters. So then that makes absolute sense. But as we say, we all have enormous families and we are very, very much in need of 3 rows all the time. So what makes the real difference with this and why the comparison works so well is that because of the captain seats, well, you have easy, or so we would believe, access to the third row. So I'm going to crawl in here. Here we go. And as you can see right now on screen, Nissan, for some unexplicable reason, I can explain, put a console right here in the floor, hampering access to the third row. Cup holders, because cup holders don't fit here as they might in the other vehicle. And the door bins or the door cards don't really have any room for the cup holders. Plus, there are 2 USB ports. The issue here is the kids. You know what the kids are going to do? Nah. That's a bad idea. But the captain seats, not so bad. Access otherwise to the third row isn't all that bad. I mean, the seat here is just moved 1 notch forward, and I'm just a hair under 5'10", as I like to say. Decent. Visibility is actually really good because the window here is very upright, and the C pillar is well moved, or actually there's a good gap between the C and D pillar. You could reasonably imagine 3 people sitting back here, maybe 2 adults and a kid, but fights might break out, and I'm not responsible for that at all. Now let's go look at the front. Hey, not bad, huh? Almost a half-century old. Very limber. Very limber. So we're going to climb aboard here. So you can see we have the 12 14.3 inch displays. Another issue here, and it's kind of as though Nissan tried to make up for it, well, there's not that much storage in the center console right here. You have your wireless charger, a couple cup holders, and then you have this bin, which is pretty far back, if you ask me, and the seat is all the way back at the moment. The storage bin beneath the bridge, I suppose, here I'll move my legs, is okay, but it's not very visible, and access is actually fairly difficult. So unless you're using it to put a Kleenex box, it's almost useless. But having said all of that, the layout, the availability of the buttons, I really do like. They're very clear, very straightforward. Shifter buttons, okay. I mean, nothing beats. But this will do just fine. The displays, very Nissan graphics. They're really growing on me as every more recent Nissan that I've driven. I do like the layout, and the functionality is very straightforward. You know, as you want to go to your Nissan menus, everything is very accessible. Big points for the heated, cooled seats, steering wheel, and all of that right here. It's very comfortable, very well put together. And one thing you do get with the seats, I mean, with the Platinum Reserve, are massaging seats, which are quite nice. And they're cooled as well, very useful when it comes to 35 plus degrees Celsius temperatures. We've talked about the Armada. Time to move on to the big red. I'm going to take this opportunity right now to tell you that personally, and my co-tester both agree that the Suburban just looks leagues and bounds better in every respect than the Armada. I agree, you know, the facelift is nice. There are a few touches that I do enjoy as far as the styling is concerned on the Armada. But when it comes to just wanting a truck, a badass truck, nothing beats the Suburban. And if you want my personal opinion, GMC Yukon XL every time. But just for the name Suburban, my goodness. And this color, in fact, 2 colors, which is really nice, deep ocean, and this beautiful red on the Suburban look great. Okay, so enough of that. Pricing for the Suburban in Canada starts for the LS at $83,499. That's a little bit insane when you consider it's about $1,500 less than the Armada. Yes, less than the Armada. But you do get a 17.7-inch touchscreen display in this thing. You get an 11-inch digital digital instrument cluster, 18-inch wheels, and all kinds of other features. One of the biggest advantages to the Suburban is that you have the choice of powertrains. There's a 5.3-liter V8, there's a 3-liter Duramax, which again, my co-tester Olivier and I both agree we would go for. And then there's the engine that powers this Suburban, which is the 6.2-liter V8. So as you can see, this is the RST trim, which includes 22-inch wheels, LED fog lights, heated front seats, leather, the dual tailpipes or quad tailpipes if you prefer. It's got the comfort pack, the RST capability pack, which is an absolute must because it includes the adaptive air ride with magnetic ride control, an absolute must. Anyways, as it sits before you, my friends, are you ready for this? It retails for, drum roll, $114,500. But it's not that insane, but it is at the same time. It's $9,000 more than the Armada. I would have never imagined this to be even possible. Okay, so now, this is why you buy a Suburban. See, because behind the third row, you have 1,175 liters of boot space. Now, as I like to say in a lot of videos, is that if this is not enough, you have to reevaluate your life. And that is absolutely true when it comes to Suburban or a Yukon XL. If you put the third row down, you have 2,656 liters of space. Effectively, you can move into your Suburban or Yukon XL. But it keeps getting better as we go along. You might have guessed that we kind of like this one. It's $9,000 more, but it's a little bit more basic. Oh, I have to say, these vehicles, very expensive, right? Well into the six figures. What's up with that? No shades. My EV9, which retails for $80,000. Even the lesser model, 65 grand, has shades. Why? Okay, so captain seats, which is available with this. As you can see, cup holders, HVAC controls are right there. Look at the highway. I mean, literally, this is an intersection for people to walk in and out of. It is spectacular. Ouch. Very good. See, real world testing. Now, back here, I did not move the seat. I have so much room. Even headroom is more generous than in the Armada. The one downside I will say is the C-pillar. Look how massive that is. So the biggest portion of the side window starts, well, actually at my ear. So that might be an issue for those who are sensitive to motion sickness. But otherwise, as far as room is concerned, you also have USB ports. Everything is in here. And considering the width of the third row bench, you could squeeze 3 adults across. I know that my brothers and I would not get along, but it could be done if my mother wanted to punish us. Punish us. I got this. Okay. See, so much easier to get in than out of. But that's what the extra length will give you. This thing is almost 45 centimeters longer overall than the Armada. Okay. So up front, now, this is where things kind of, not fall apart, that's the wrong word, but there's I'm trying to put this nicely, but obviously getting aboard is very nice, not a problem. We're going to start it up right away. But the thing is, oh, by the way, look at this. The brake pedal cover fell off. Can't explain why, but it has, so maybe there's a lack of glue. Anyhow, the thing with the Suburban is the lack of features for the price. And this is a big issue for me because a manual tilt telescoping steering wheel at this price point, unacceptable. Available power in the Armada. No cooled seats. That does not make any sense whatsoever. That means, and oh, you have power folding mirrors, but you have to press the button. You can't coordinate it with the power locking, or at least I couldn't figure that out. However, 17.7-inch display with the digital instrument cluster. The display is magnificent. I love how it's angled towards the driver. I got this. I'm on top of things. The layout is fantastic. And because this is an ICE Chevy product, you do have CarPlay, right? Because if you get an EV, there's no CarPlay, pair phone, so it wants to play. That's really nice. Storage is actually not that bad. It's a little bit more generous than in the Armada. One of the reasons, do you see that? Do you see the brilliance? Huh? Drive, reverse, park, chef's kiss. Lots of storage. The interior is, I will admit, not as classy as in the Armada. Fit finish, maybe a notch slightly below. But for all intents and purposes, this is beautiful. It's just down on equipment. I mean, you have a heads-up display, but no cooled seats and no power telescoping steering column. I don't know. I don't make decisions at GM, but I would definitely revise that. Or they just want you to spend more money and get a higher trim, which I wouldn't do. Well, no, actually I would, because I want a GMC Yukon XL AT4 Ultimate, but it's almost $140,000. Anyhow, at this point in time, we're going to go for a drive. Alrighty then, starting off in the Armada. Now, I drove the QX80 not that long ago, so this is still very fresh in my mind. And for, again, all intents and purposes, I guess it's one of my new favorite lines. The driving experience is actually better than decent. The power, when eventually the transmission does kick down and give you access to the power, is very, very interesting. 425 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque, which is even more torque than a Duramax diesel. that's available with the Suburban. So 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, right? Same engine as in the QX80. Although in the QX80 it does start at 450 horsepower. This is just a numbers game. And well, Nissan is exploiting that because they've recently announced the coming of an Armada Nismo with 460 horsepower. But it's just very, very minor tweaks. One of the first things that I always notice when I get behind, or have noticed, I should say, behind the Pathfinder, the QX80 is how Nissan has really tried to tweak the driving impression more towards a sporty nature than all-out comfort. First thing is steering. It's extremely heavy, and I'm only in the regular drive mode. So you have the sport and all of that, but I'm going to focus on normal for the review. I mean, you kind of forget about it. You really notice it when you step from the Suburban into this, because the Suburban feels like an old school, American car where you can actually steer with one finger. Which for these vehicles, their size, given their size, I do far prefer. And like the QX80, this thing at above 3,000 RPM sounds really nice. It's got a very mechanical, very tuned sound. But at low RPM, below, around idle and low RPM, it still has a kind of a, I don't know, it seems like it's out of tune. But there's no questioning power. And yeah, using sport mode is one way to avoid having to deal with the constant, the 9-speed feels like it just doesn't want to play along. But that's all fine. The brakes are very nice as well. The response is good. Pedal travel is limited. It's nowhere near, well, as we get into the Suburban, I'll explain to you the big difference there. And the air ride suspension on the 22-inch wheels. I'm on a horrible off-ramp right now, and the ride quality is still far, far better than good. And it's still very comfortable, and I'm about to get into a tight left-hander 2-lane, and I do mean tight, especially when there's a fairly big truck. And look at this. And a good bump and another bump. The ride quality is surprising. Now, unless I'm mistaken, the air suspension is only available in the Pro 4X for off-roading purposes, of course, and the Platinum Reserve. So those are definitely two trims you seriously want to consider, if mostly because of the air suspension. Fuel consumption is actually proving to be pretty good. We've kind of noticed as low as 11 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. Mixed driving Nissan, Natural Resources Canada says you can expect somewhere around just under 14 liters per 100 kilometers. But I suspect in the winter, you're going to be well into the 14s, closing in on the 15s on a regular basis. As far as the ride is concerned, I'll tell you now, I'll give away part of the punch. This rides better than the Suburban. And one of the main reasons for the Suburban's shortcoming as far as that's concerned is those 24-inch wheels, which really look good. I'll give them all that. But the compromises are far too great. Anyhow, from here on to the Suburban. So now I'm aboard Big Red. And just before I go on with the driving impressions, another thing, just the details that are unacceptable at this point in time and at this price point is I have auto down rear windows, but they're not auto up. My 8-year-old Golf has auto up and down everywhere. These are just fine, very little teeny tiny details, but I don't think that in this highly competitive world that is of the automobile, with all the options and alternatives and emerging powertrains and all these options, these things cannot be looked over anymore. Anyway, okay, so Suburban as tested, and I believe I mentioned it, 6.2 liter V8, which is an option. As I did mention, I would go for the 3 liter Duramax 6-cylinder engine, which puts out 495 pound-feet of torque. It is an $8,000 to $9,500 option, depending on trim and option and all that. but I firmly believe in the eventual fuel efficiencies, and more than likely in the resale, the Duramax should pay itself off after a while and a fair amount of mileage. But the beauty with the 6.2, 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque is how creamy smooth. This is another one of those engines that just, it feels like it's churning butter, and it also happens to sound really, really good. And one of the things about the sound is that it sounds more outside than inside, which is a really nice touch. That's why I hate these digitized things. When I'm driving this, yes, I'm happy I have a V8 and all that, but it's for the others to know that I have a V8, not for me, because I know. One of those details, I suppose. But I guess we can just jump right into fuel consumption. 10-speed automatic transmission, which very much like the 9-speed in the Armada, the transmission is lazy. Via throttle response, depending on speeds and traffic. If you put the hammer down, honestly, that wasn't so bad. I guess I was high enough in the RPMs for it to kick down. Sport mode has been a must, as with the Armada, to get things moving a little bit quicker. Otherwise, sometimes the delays when passing, just are annoying and disappointing. Well, fuel consumption. So Natural Resources Canada and Chevy will tell you can average about 15.5 liters per 100 kilometers in combined driving, which is almost exactly what I'm averaging now. The caveat is that about more than 75% of my driving has been done on the highway. Therefore, in mixed driving in the winter, I think you can easily aim towards 17 to 18 liters per 100 kilometers, which is fairly high. But you have a massive 6,000+ pound SUV that can carry everything and everyone at once. That's your trade-off. One of the other trade-offs, but before I go on with that, steering is it's far lighter, especially at lower speeds than the Armada. Still relatively precise even at highway speeds. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the two downsides, I'll jump right into that. Brakes. So I mentioned, for example, in the Armada, brake pedal travel is very reasonable. It's not completely out of whack. And the response is good. The GM, this Suburban, reminds me of GMs of old, where brake pedal feel is very tight and travel is extremely limited, but response and performance, not that good. Well, not that it's not that good, is that you have to pressure, more pressure, and then eventually it will stop. So I used to describe that as a wooden brake pedal feel where nothing happens, and then eventually something kind of happens. Braking performance is there. It's something you can get used to as you drive around. The other thing, which as part of one of the options for this Suburban, is the air suspension as well as the magnetic ride control, which normally, no matter the vehicle that it is fitted to, ride quality is really good. Not so much in the Suburban. I am stuck in some massive traffic right now. I am on the highway, so this is it, real time happening. The ride quality is utterly disappointing. I blame in large part the oversized yet very attractive 24-inch wheels and tires, which must weigh 120 pounds per corner, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't lifted them, and I won't. Because if there are repeated irregularities in the road surface, the dampers, the airbags, the whole thing has no clue what to do with itself. In fact, on one of those same off-ramps that I used in the Armada that you just saw, the repeated bumps actually has the SUV hopping dangerously to one side or the other. It is terrible. At low speeds, not that bad, relatively comfortable, but the moment the surface is anything less than perfect and speeds rise slightly, it is horrible. Two solutions to that: 20-inch wheels if you can, depending on the trim, and, well, no, that's the only solution. 20-inch wheels. There's no other solution, because you still want the magnetic ride control and the air suspension for the height adjustments, because this has 4 different ride height adjustments, as with the Armada. Overall, the bottom line is that no matter what the Armada does better, the interior, even the ride quality, my heart just belongs to these trucks. I recently drove the Expedition, and though the 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 is very powerful, it actually makes really nice V8 sound. There's a whole bunch of things going on with the interior of, though nice, the Expedition. The controls on the steering wheel I can't stand. The redundancy of the screens I can't stand. And there's a few other elements. This is a little bit more basic, though I'm assuming it will change sooner rather than later. But yeah, my heart belongs to these GM trucks and has for a long, long time. The Sequoia is completely out. The Armada is far better than it previously was, but it lacks that appeal as far as I'm concerned. And the Wagoneers, the Grand Wagoneers, they're very nice. They kind of on a level footing with the Ford and Lincoln trucks. To me, these, especially with the Duramax, as long as it's available, these are fantastic. And I will end on that.